When I came to wine, it wasn't starting over. It was bringing everything together. Teaching taught me how to make things simple. Law taught me how to do negotiations, contracts, and have tough discussions. Night market taught me how to build community, events, sales, and marketing. And let me tell you, night market was a wild ride. I had live music going on at stage at different hours of the day. I had food trucks out back. I had hundreds of vendors. I had a wine bar. I had roving entertainers. And I was the one who made sure that everything was running smoothly, that staff were assigned. And it was a wild ride, but it taught me so much. And that's where I fell in love with wine when I had my wine bar. I had started taking some lessons in wine and I was taking schooling. And I started my first wine bar because I really fell in love with wine and wanted to offer that to the guests and would do wine tastings before market opened and for special guests. And I realized that wine was really just like something that never ending passion for me. Government taught me systems and wine brought it all together in one place. Because for me, wine isn't just liquid in a glass, it's actually people in bottles. And when I say that, the people in the bottles are the people who make the wines. And I work with small producers from around the world. They aren't producing millions and millions of bottles. They're usually don't even have a website. They might be low tech. And all they want to focus on is making wine. They don't want to do marketing. They don't want to figure out websites. They don't want to do any of those pieces because all they want to do is focus on making wine and they're really good at it. And so I try to be that bridge between those low tech producers or those producers who just want to focus on their craft and hospitality who is looking for something that's a little bit different that isn't in liquor stores. But it also, they're looking for someone who's going to take something off their plate instead of adding something to their plate or just another task that they need to do. So that means when I come in, I'm like Psalm in a box, but I'm not a sommelier. I do have a diploma in wine, and that is more of a holistic way of looking at wine from seed to glass. We understand the business of wine. We understand how much sun grows on the particular side of a mountain where the vines grow. And we have to apply all of that to blind tasting, etc. I went through WSET, and so I have my WSET diploma. And what that did is that taught me the technical skills that I needed for wine. And I had already built the idea about how wine or a glass of wine can leave a memory worth repeating. And it's the wine and it's the story that it includes. It's about the place, it's about the people, it's about the culture, it's about the history, and it's all wrapped into one. And it is really the most amazing thing. And so when you drink a glass of wine, you're drinking someone's work. And it's not just one day's work, it's a whole year's work in a glass, and you're drinking that. And it's the place that you meet your girlfriends for a glass of wine after happy hour that creates memories and the things that you laugh about when you're there. It's about the bottle of wine you proudly bring to a dinner party that's special because you want to share it with your friends. It's a nice meal out where a flight makes the special occasion that much better just because. And that's why I approach wine programs differently. I bring it all. So I do the staff training, I put together flights, I work with venues to figure out if they're maximizing the amount of profit that they can from their current wine program. And oftentimes what I find is that wine is a bit of an afterthought and it can be quite overwhelming. And I've studied a long time, but I still have so much more to learn. So I couldn't imagine how overwhelmed so many people must feel. They've got staffing, they've got the front of house, they got the back of house, they've got a million things that they're worrying about, and wine is just another thing. And I think that that's often quite evident. You'll see it on menus because the bartender will make the cocktail menu and they really care about cocktails and they want fresh ingredients and fun names and they want them to be pretty on the menu. And you can see that that's usually created by the bartenders. But what's missing in wine, especially in those like mid to large, I would say, establishments that don't have a full-time sommelier, they don't have someone who can work on their wine program dedicated to that. And so wine becomes a 2% of what their job is. And as a result, they just don't have the time because it is a lot of work. Now, I love putting all of those things together so I can work with venues. A venue that I recently worked with, we are working on a menu for reintroducing supper service on Friday and Saturday nights. And I work with them and say, like, what kind of, like, how do we want to get things up and running? And what are the goals? And where do you want to be? And like, what are we going to measure? And what wines make sense to bring in, and how can we bring things in so that it's less work instead of more work? And what you want to do is ensure that you're bringing in wines that you can use in different ways. And so maybe you can put it in a flight, maybe you can make it a house wine, maybe you could have it as a Thursday special, maybe you could do it for happy hour. But the idea is that you're leveraging wine in a way that makes it feel good when you go and order it. What you don't want to do, and what I don't like seeing, is when you look at a wine menu and you scroll down it and it's everything that you can find in the liquor store for 3 times the price. All that does is piss off customers. And so if you're sitting at a table and you see that the bottle's $90 and it was 18 in the liquor store, you don't believe that any of the things that are on the menu are worth it. So you're not going to buy any of it. And if that's what you have, I'm guaranteeing you've got bottles just sitting there and they're collecting dust, and that's just dead cash. The other thing that I often find is staff don't feel confident about wine. Here's what I see at most venues. They don't feel confident when they have to serve the wine, and they're struggling trying to figure out how to do the corkscrew. They don't know how to do table side opening. They don't know what the wine is. They don't know how to talk about the wine. And when I ask them, do you get any wine training? Often they say, no, we don't get any wine training. And I understand that. So if you're busy as a F&B manager or a leader, or you're running a restaurant, like, you don't have often time to do staff training on wine particularly, but it makes a big difference if your staff can say like 1 or 2, 3 words about why this wine is great, or it pairs really well with this, or would you like to try a sample of this wine? You're going to sell more wine, and wine should be your biggest margin item. And if it isn't, then you're doing it wrong. And if staff aren't confident about the wine, that is a missing ingredient. Often the other thing that I see in venues is that the house pour was chosen for price, not pride. And this is a huge mistake that they make. If your house pour is something you wouldn't drink, why the hell is it your house pour? Like, your house pour should be like approachable, easy, tasty, good value. It is a representative of your establishment. And so the way that I often talk about it is I say to people, having a restaurant and inviting guests in is like inviting people into your home. And when you invite people into your home, you're not going to just give them any swill and say, oh, that's good enough, I hope they like it. No, you're going to put a little bit of thought and intention to it. And you've welcomed people in, and what you want them to do is have a nice experience. Now, if you're smart about your host pour, you're going to make crazy margins because it's going to be a good price. It's going to be lower than the other things typically that are on the menu. It's going to be cheaper than a cocktail. And when they taste it and say, wow, this is fantastic, they're going to order another glass and another glass. And you're going to make way more profit than if it's just an afterthought. And if guests can find the same wines at every venue down the street, the list doesn't really tell them who you are. If you don't have a good house pour, then you're going to start off with a bad first impression. And it should set the tone for pride, not compromise. The other thing I often see is that if your wine list could be anywhere, and like, really, you could be sitting anywhere and you're like, oh yeah, same wine list, same wine list. Often I'll go out and I peruse the wine list and I have to go, ooh, often, because if the wine list is the same as every other wine list, and the same as every other establishment, it's not really much fun to drink wine, especially if you like it. And there are a lot of grapes out there in the world. There are a lot of producers out there in the world. There are a lot of countries producing wine. So why do I have to drink the same wine at every restaurant every time I go there? Now, when I sit down and I see that there is a little bit of thought and intention in the wine list, and there may be something that I haven't tried before, like I want to try something fun. The other day, I went out to shout out to Dear Gus, and they're delightful. They give you wine samples, you're sitting there, and they have some fun things to try on the menu. And when you say, just bring me something fun, wow, they nail it every time. And it's not everything that you can try down the street, around the corner, and everywhere else. And it just makes the whole experience that much better. You're likely to order more wine as a result because you're not bored. So if the guests can find the same wines at every venue down the street, the list doesn't tell them who you are. It doesn't have any personality, and your wine list should be a reflection of your establishment. Generic lists also don't create loyalty. If you want to build a community, they want to come back to your establishment. They want to come back there for a few reasons. If you're in a hotel, they want to come back because of the way it made them feel. They want to feel pampered. They want to feel restful. They want to feel good service. Sure, maybe they just want a cheap place to stay, and that's exactly what they're looking for. But for those guests who come in and are looking for an experience and looking for a little bit more, there's a lot of thoughtful ways you could do that. You could have a wine tasting in the lobby when they arrive. You could have 2 glasses of bubbly waiting for a couple who's coming for a special occasion in their room. You could offer a nice pour while they're at the restaurant in the hotel and just say, this is our signature wine. There's lots of ways to add wine in that doesn't create more work, but certainly creates more profit. And why is that? Because wine is one of the most powerful ways to set a venue apart. And it's also the simplest. Food can be copied, decor can be copied, but wine, done well, it's one of the simplest, most powerful ways to set your venue apart. I curate wines you won't find everywhere, and there's a reason for that. I work with small producers. I'm the bridge between their usually low-tech skills and the modern digital world over here. And I don't bring in wines that everyone else has. I curate wines that are rare, thoughtful, and story driven. They have families behind them. They love their craft. And when you start talking to them, their face lights up. They talk about their family, they talk about their vineyards, they talk about the wines, and it's all together because it is passion. It's part of the family. It's a history, and oftentimes it's a legacy. They learned it from their family who used to do the work, and now they've passed it on to them. I create wine lists that staff can get behind. I create wine lists that guests ask for by name. And it doesn't have to be a whole list. It could be a good house pour. It could be a nice flight with brunch at Mimosas on Sundays. It can be a lot of things. So I like to give staff the confidence to make wine their easiest upsell. And the best upsell isn't forced. It's natural, it's confident, it's effortless. That's what happens when staff know the story behind the bottle. The wine becomes the easiest upsell. Menus and moments, house pours, flight nights that fill the room. I design menus, but I also design moments. And house pours that become your signature, flights that spark curiosity, nights that fill the room. Wine becomes the anchor of the experience. Bums in seats. If the program that you have right now for wine doesn't grow profit and loyalty, it doesn't matter how beautiful the wine is. Really, it doesn't. I love beautiful wine, don't get me wrong. But in hospitality, beauty is not enough. In the wine program, if it doesn't grow profit and loyalty, it doesn't belong on the list. And what does that mean? I always think about the wow factor. Like when you drink a great glass of wine and you go, oh, that's so good. Like that's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. And the funny thing about wine is, oh man, once you get addicted to the wines, like trying something fun and new and exciting and from a region you haven't had or a variety that you haven't had, like you're chasing it all the time because there's just so many, you could never try them all. And that's what you want. You want to grow profit and loyalty. You want to change things up. You want it to be fresh. You want to have something special. And it doesn't have to be on the menu all the time. You could just drop it in for a week. You could have a whisper pour. Like there's lots of things you can do, and you can make the experience really special for guests. Within 60 days, it became the most reordered glass. At one private club, I replaced the house red, and 2 months later, it was the most reordered glass on the list. Not because it was expensive, but because staff loved pouring it and guests came back asking for it. They didn't have to learn anything new. It was a staple on the menu, and once the staff learned it, it was easy to upsell. It was easy to add to a meal. It was great. Wine sales grew without adding complexity. The best results don't come from overcomplicating things. At one venue, wine sales grew in 60 days without adding complexity, just the right bottle in the right place. Wine is hospitality in a glass. It's not about showing off. It's not about gimmicks. It's about the feeling you leave with. And it should be a reprieve from our everyday. It is for me anyway. Like for me to have a glass of wine, it's a moment of relaxation. I'm usually hanging out with someone else, whether it's friends or family, and we're talking about our days or our weeks or our hopes and our dreams. And for me, that's what wine is. When I drink wine, I think of being in the backyard in Portugal at this long table with the sun and food coming out and people laughing. I think about being in France and doing the same thing. I think about being in Champagne and going to one of the champagne tastings with my daughter and just having a great time. Like those are the things that I associate with wine. I love to cook, and so I'm in the kitchen and I have a glass of wine and I'm making a beautiful meal and I have music playing, and usually it's records because I love old school. I love records. I love nice wine. I love making a meal from scratch. I love the small moments in between my really busy day. And wine is an add-on to that. And it's about the feeling that you leave with when you drink wine. That just happened. Ah, all right. So, a moment that belongs to you and only you in that place and time. The best glass of wine isn't just about taste, it's about timing, it's about place, it's about the sense that the moment belongs only to you. That's hospitality. So, what does that mean? Have you ever had a glass of wine and you're just like, whoa, this was so fantastic? Really love this wine. You write down the name, you save it in your phone, whatever you do, and you're so excited to try it again. And then you go to try it again and in a different circumstance, different people, different feeling, and it feels flat. It doesn't feel the same. Well, that's because wine often is about the experience surrounding it as well. And so it's not just about the gimmicks, it's about the feeling that you leave with, and it's about the moment about when you're drinking wine. And I often say that the most memorable glasses of wine aren't the ones that are so expensive or so fancy. And I've had the pleasure to try so many beautiful wines from all over the world. But I will say the glasses of wine that I remember the most always have people associated with them. So whether I'm sitting on a balcony overlooking the mountains and we're having this beautiful bottle of wine, like that's what I remember. I remember all those moments around it. So it's not just the view, it's not just the food, it's about how they felt when they were in your care. Guests don't always come back for the food. They don't always come back for the view. They come back for how they felt in your care. Wine is part of that story. And I will say, we go back to restaurants that we wouldn't typically frequent just because the service made us feel like we were taken care of. We had a busy, long day. We come in and someone is waiting at the front door with a smile. They ask you how your day was. Are you celebrating anything special? Maybe they bring you over something that you didn't ask for just because you frequent there and they know you. So a glass of bubbly, a nice dessert, and it's a good experience. And that is what you need to do in hospitality. And you can use wine in so many ways to make that moment just a little bit better, give a little bit of a wow. And that's the goal. Let's give them wow. And you can do that with bubbles, and you can do that with whites, you can do it with rosés, you can do it with red. Like there's so many ways that you can do that. You can decorate a glass with a candy cane, like so many things that you can do that just make it feel so much more special. Let's open a bottle and see what your wine program really can do. This is my invitation. Let's open a bottle and let's see what your wine program really can do. This is my invitation. Let's open a bottle and see what your wine program really can do. Okay.